Ladies and gents, this is the most efficient space program in the world by the channel Primal Space. Throughout the history of spaceflight, we've seen some incredible achievement take place. But one country that isn't often mentioned in the history of spaceflight is India. Oh, this is about India. Alright. This video looks at India's efficiency when it comes to cost saving and building rockets. Oh, this is about ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization. So yeah, ISRO spent a rocket on the space and sent 108 satellites or something in massive cost saving way. It was just a few years ago. So this video is about that, I think. I mean, when you check a globe and see all the countries there are, and you ask yourself question, which one of these countries you think could develop a successful rocket on a budget, you would come with the answer India. It kind of makes sense. This is not something surprising. I mean, look, China's not going to do it in budget, because why would they? They have tons of money. China is a communistic country. Country comes first before anything. That's the basic mentality. I mean, there might not be the communism core mentality when communism came forward, but that's what usually goes up to. Whenever a communistic country is, usually country state takes precedence over anything else. That's how it usually goes. So China just had past 1 or 2 decades, they just had massive financial boom, massive financial growth. If you see China 20 years ago and if you see it now, it's completely different. I mean, I saw some episode of Grand Tour, the 3rd season, and I saw China's, city that I never even heard of. This is not the city that I heard of, like the famous Chinese cities. This is a city that I didn't even heard of it, and so it was such a skyscraper, such a awesome looking place. So China is just jumped up. Apparently, they have tons of money. So why would they do it on budget? USA would not do it in budget because it's USA, the richest country in the world. Russia might not be the richest country in the world, but they still have enough money. They are not going to do it on budget either. Why would they? They are the first one. They are the first one who invented the rocket. Russia is first at everything. First rocket on the space. First human in space. First animal in space. First black human in space. Russia is not going to do it. They know how to do it, and they don't have to do it in budget. So obviously, when you think about it, like who would do it on a budget, it would be India. But yeah, it's still applaudable that they were successful at doing so. More applaudable is lots of missions they did it on the first try. That's really surprising. So now let's watch it.
KiwiCo. In 1961, the Soviet Union launched the first human into space. In 1969, America put the first man on the moon. In 2019, China landed the first spacecraft on the far side of the moon. Since day one, the spaceflight industry has been extremely competitive, with countries developing the most advanced technologies and pushing the boundaries of what humans are capable of. But one country that isn't often mentioned in the history of spaceflight is India. For decades, the Indian Space Agency has been quietly working away and achieving some incredible results. In this video, we're going
Yeah, I mean, first when the ISRO started, people used to bring rocket parts on bicycles. I mean, there's a reason the phrase exists that it's not rocket science, because rocket science is that advanced and that hard. And thinking that they brought rocket parts to build a proper rocket on bicycles, I mean, that's just surreal when you think about it. I mean, look, India is a democracy. They have to walk slower pace. So obviously, they are not going to be financially, too much financial power like China is, because China is not democracy. They don't have to be slow like the India. India probably will, in much later, will probably reach a point where they have enough money to spend properly on, ISRO or something. But even right now, the country can't spend that much money. So when your back is against the wall and it's like either do it on budget or don't do it at all, of course you're going to find a way to do it on budget. You have to.
going to look at the efficiency of India's space program. We're also going to look at its relationship with private space companies and how that could change in the future. When India began their space program in 1969, they entered into a world dominated by America and the Soviet Union. In the States, people were living well, and businesses were booming with the new advancements in technology. In India, the people had nothing, and with a controlling government, even food was hard to come by. It was a strange time to start a space program. Apollo 11 had just returned from the moon, and NASA were spending around $40 billion each year in today's money. India came onto the scene with a mere $1 billion.
I mean, when you think about it, really, it's not a strange time. Doesn't matter how bad your financially is. If you invest in a space program, your economy will go up immensely in future. I mean, all scientists say that. You hear Neil deGrasse Tyson saying that, Brian Greene saying that. Lots of scientists always says that, and it makes sense. The Apollo program is the reason of what 30 plus percent of GDP of the entire world. Computers, mobiles, all the chips inside us, microchips, satellites, everything exists because they were going to the moon. Apollo program. When you bring on smartest people on the world and tell them that solve a problem because we have to go to the moon, they are gonna come up with extraordinary things. They were told like we're gonna need these computers on a rocket, but these computers are too big, too heavy to put it on a rocket and go to the moon. So what can we do about it? So they started to research and created microchips and made computers extremely small. That's why we have mobiles right now. That's why every digitized and modern thing has some kind of chip in it. That was because of this. So even though more than 30% of GDP of the world is because of that, the effect is even more greater than that. Why? Because USA tried to go to the moon, did the Apollo program, went to the moon, all that process, invented all these things. And even in USA, where they have enough money, in the Congress they always battle the NASA, like why would we spend money on you? It's not an immediate need. Yeah, but whatever money you spent on Apollo program, you're still cashing on it today. Entire world is cashing on it today. That's why every other country like China, Russia, and everybody is, and even India is spending money on the space, because that will bring out some kind of technology that will push up your economy greatly. So yeah, around the time where India was not doing so good, where USA and Russia was just dominating, and even India had the issue of even simple food everywhere. India was really, really poor at that time, and they started ISRO. It kind of makes sense because it's like it's for the future. If you're just gonna stay and everybody's hungry, just focus on that and not focus on anything else, you're not thinking of future. You're gonna stay in that state for long. I mean, look at it, Africa. Most places in Africa, they have hunger issues. They can't help it. They are surrounded around it. If at certain point somebody thought of some means to advance the technology for the future, maybe some countries would have turned it around, and some countries are slowly turning around in Africa. So you have to think about the future.
So in order to make any impact in the space community, they had to get smart. Since day one, India was focused on using their space program to improve aspects of their own country. Things like telephone communication and weather forecasts were almost non-existent at the time, and for a country that was based on agriculture, this was a big problem. So, over the next decade, India began launching satellites to provide communications and important weather data to improve the farming industry. But how did they manage to do all of this on such a tight budget? The early days of India's space program were extremely humble. Rocket parts were often transported by bike, and larger components like satellites were transported by bull carts. During this time, India's space program employed just 3,000 workers. To put this into perspective, NASA was employing around 200,000 workers during the Apollo program. Nowadays, the employee count between ISRO and NASA is much more similar, but the efficiencies in India's infrastructure can still be seen today. India's space program pays far less for its skilled workforce than any other space agency. The average aerospace engineer in India gets paid around $10,000, whereas in America, the same job would pay 8 times more. This massive difference in cost allows India to undercut other countries on the cost to manufacture each rocket. Although most of India's rockets are only designed to launch small payloads, in some cases, the cost for launching on an Indian rocket is 70% cheaper than other options. The PSLV is India's workhorse rocket, and it has a surprisingly low launch cost of just $15 million. In 2017, it pulled off a mission that stunned space programs around the world by launching an incredible 104 satellites into orbit. Despite the extra engineering required to pull this off, sharing the launch cost between so many people made the cost for each satellite company extremely cheap. But India's cheap workforce is only half of what makes their rockets so effective.
Damn, man, that is cheap. I mean, imagine a company. We need a satellite on the space. How much is gonna cost us? Yeah, $200,000. But that's not that much. Averagely, some company, average company, their executives get bigger bonuses than that. I mean, that's not much. If some just average company comes out and say we want to send a satellite on space, how much is going to cost us? It's just $200,000. That's like nothing.
Affordable. Instead of outsourcing rocket parts to foreign companies, India gets most of its materials from local companies. Although they might be able to find more advanced components elsewhere, keeping all of the parts in-house saves India up to 50% in overall costs. Utilizing the expertise of other companies is a common theme in spaceflight. Now that the technology required to get into orbit is much more obtainable, it has allowed private companies like SpaceX and Rocket Lab to make a massive impact in the spaceflight community. But this is one area that holds India back. Although it's not illegal for India's private companies to enter space, the laws and regulations make it almost impossible for private space ventures to be set up. Until recently. A new space bill has been written to allow the private sector to develop their own rockets and satellites. Traditionally, ISRO have contracted private companies to design and manufacture their rockets and spacecraft. Now, private companies can spend their own time and money in developing more advanced spacecraft for interplanetary missions. Although India has experience with this, their interplanetary missions in the past have been limited in terms of what they can discover. But this isn't a fault of India's space program. This is by choice. A common theme that runs through India's space program is high ambition paired with a low budget. India always wanted to go to the Moon and Mars, and they didn't let their small budget stop them. The Mars Orbiter mission, which launched in 2013, made India only the fourth space agency to successfully get to Mars. And they did it on their first attempt. They also did this on a shoestring budget of just $74 million, a fraction of what other space agencies typically spend. Apart from making their spacecraft small and simple, India likes to keep the overall duration of the mission as short as possible. NASA has multiple missions that have spanned decades and racked up enormous running costs.
You can't compare ISRO with NASA, man. Come on. NASA is just whole another league. I genuinely do believe, even though this would be a stupid thing to think, but whenever every country in the world pitches in the space program and there is a global organization, it probably will be NASA. Even though it's American agency, it will become NASA, because NASA is just whole another league. Their missions are just too thought out for long distances. Even though American Congress keep cutting the budget of NASA is still, it's like spearheading way for the future, thinking missions for a long time.
From the initial conception to the end of operation, India's missions are designed to only run for a few years. So although India's capabilities and achievements might not be on the same scale as NASA, their incredible ambition and clever cost efficiency has allowed them to become one of the world's key players in the space community.
ISRO said that they are not looking to be the first pioneers of anything. They just want to make it more commercial use of it, like cutting costs so they can send more satellites on space and just increasing the economy and push it wherever they can. They are not looking to compete with any agency. That's kind of smart move. If you're looking to just compete, I mean, first of all, you don't have the budget to do that. You're just gonna fail and not achieve anything, and world just didn't gain anything from that. This way, world gains cheaper options to go to space, while other giant countries with a big budget can spearhead technologies like they always did.
Their humble beginnings, cycling rocket parts back and forth, to launching spacecraft to other planets, their ability to achieve so much with so little is an inspiring story which sums up the Indian spirit. In order to continue being one of the greatest space agencies in the world, India will need to hire the next generation of talented and creative engineers. KiwiCo creates super cool hands-on projects designed to get kids thinking about concepts in STEAM, like science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Each monthly
STEAM. It used to be STEM. Science, technology, engineering, and maths. Artists like, what about us? So they're alright, fine. We'll call it STEAM and added an A there. Alright, people. Go to kiwico.com/primal space and support them that way. Yeah, so this was an interesting video. I knew lots of things about this. Obviously, I'm Indian and this is an Indian Space Research Organization video, so I would know it. So there wasn't some new information for me. But yeah, India is taking a smart approach to this. It kind of is applauding, because just trying to be competitive to the other people, like compete for things, that's just going, if India try to compete with China, that's not going to work. China has much more money. India try to compete with NASA, that's just ridiculous. So they are just doing their own thing. They even says that we are not looking to compete anything, we are just doing our own thing, making a commercial use, pushing the technology wherever we can in efficiency sector, so that kind of thing. So yeah, alright, if you like my reaction, please don't forget to like and subscribe.